Besides his platforming and kart racing extravaganza, Super Mario also boasts a long-running career as a role-playing hero, which for many people peaked with Paper Mario: The Thousand Year Door, which was the second Paper Mario game ever, first released on GameCube in 2004, then remastered on Nintendo Switch a couple of decades later. In theory, most of these games work in similar ways ever since the very first Super Mario RPG on Super Nintendo, which means you traverse small maps full of dungeons, puzzles and villages while engaging in turn-based battles which try to mix traditional menu-based fighting with action commands stemming from Mario's platforming roots. But compared to other JRPGs, the stories were an ironic take on the whole Super Mario spiel, with characters like Bowser and Peach being aware of their own absurdity and cannon fodder-like Goombas living ordinary lives. After the original Super Nintendo game, the Mario and Luigi Superstar Saga line of RPGs in particular would crank up the Mario insanity to 11 through lots of zany characters and over-the-top humor, while the Paper Mario games were also able to sneak in a feeling of adventure, most well realized in Thousand Year Door. Mario inventor Shigeru Miyamoto is known to really boil down game stories to the absolute minimum, to the point that he forced a slight amount of characterization in Mario Galaxy to be cut out of the sequel. And then infamously he demanded that all unique characters and story elements needed to be cut out of the Paper Mario sequel called Sticker Star. This view is understandable and often needed because above static storytelling, all games need to be fun interacting with through gameplay. But it's not as universal as someone like Miyamoto would believe. Adventure games and RPGs become much less interesting if you cut out all of their surprise elements or remove more unexpected things the players could discover. Sticker Star felt like an obscure sequence of challenges, less like an adventure game, ultimately leading to maybe the biggest backlash against the Mario franchise ever, when they doubled down on this approach for a direct sequel. Because the original Paper Mario games were already proof that even something like Mario can work with a story. Yes, above all, Thousand Year Door has a very engaging and nicely balanced battle system, which is beginner friendly but also just has enough depth, in particular in boss battles, to be compelling. While the set pieces offer a good variety in puzzle solving and intuitive investigation gameplay. Not counting some of the blatant stretching of game length through backtracking, the original series kept itself fresh with many different adventure gameplay elements. But these things correlate directly with story set pieces and the writing. In the first Paper Mario games, you delve into chapters which are all unique 3 to 4 hour long plots, ranging from conventional JRPG settings like castle dungeons to much more outlandish set pieces like murder plots or Peach philosophizing with a Space Odyssey computer. With that in mind, something like a fighting arena, which would often be a rather ordinary set of battle challenges in other JRPGs, is significantly elevated in Paper Mario by an in-depth wrestling plot which then becomes a wacky corruption thriller. But even more traditional settings like a deserted treasure islands become much more engaging through lots of witty writing and unique characters that are not bound by any franchise guidelines. Compared to later sequels which weren't allowed to introduce new characters, in the original games you never knew where the journey was going. Anything from Mario's crew being kidnapped by an evil nerd lizard to mafia melodrama was possible. The biggest disappointment when I played Thousand Year Door back in the day was that the mechanics and even progression and puzzles felt very similar to the first Paper Mario. Still, it was a new story, so it felt like it had its place. Now, because Nintendo is Nintendo and they can't help themselves but to always dumb down their old games for remasters, Thousand Year Door on Switch got a new cheat button with which NPCs can practically spoil nearly every step you need to make. While in theory you don't need to press it, it's still so central that it takes quite a bit of wonder out of the investigations. So much so that I prefer the original release, but even that only drives home that the biggest strength lies in the writing and story setups, which are not affected by this kind of handholding. It isn't just the wacky plots and scenarios, but also the dialogue, which finds a perfect balance between irony and surprising wit. If they wanted the Mario movie to not only be financially but also critically successful, the writing of Paper Mario is where they should have taken inspiration. Even if not all scenes are laugh out loud moments, the script always remains a joy to read. Not to mention that this tone perfectly carries over into battle gameplay, which, presented like a stage play, is one big meta gag. Heightened by a great art direction with paper set pieces that feel obviously very cartoony, but still atmospheric, and with lots of inventive character designs, which despite their seemingly simple nature, make for very expressive animations and very distinct appearances. Besides the humorous characters, what sets Thousand Year Door apart is also the more adventurous world building, which features a surprising amount of detail, and I'm not talking about the graphics. There's a huge number of original NPCs which all have little backstories or even their own adventures. Lots of minor characters show up at different places, write you mail and so on. The most prominent example being Luigi, who has his own role-playing adventure in the background. Just the fact that with your research skill you can get small quips on literally every NPC in the entire game makes the world feel alive. This kind of dedication to building up seemingly unimportant characters and optional side locations is rarely seen. Maybe most comparable to some of the Yakuza Like a Dragon games. The main hub world, Rogueport, is actually full of lore and secrets, and slowly delving into its underground depth over the course of the campaign makes for a pretty decent feeling of mystery, on top of the more quirky Mario hijinks. JRPGs sometimes don't have the grandiose writing that you might remember from playing them as a youngster. This is not the case for Thousand Year Door. Its writing is quite timeless. It's aware of its Mario shenanigans, but it's not just slapstick. It's family friendly but not infantile. Despite its wacky nature, the care put into its world building and the variety of its set pieces doesn't just make Thousand Year Door one of the best Mario adventures, but also one of the better JRPGs of its time, in particular the original version. Ironically, despite what the Miyamotos of this world believe, Thousand Year Door is one of the best Nintendo classics, precisely because of its passive storytelling.